growing luminous. On the mystic path, we create our own light, and at first we struggle blind and baffled, seeing nothing, hearing nothing, unable to think, unable to imagine. We seem deserted by dream, vision, or inspiration, and our meditation barren altogether. But let us persist through weeks or months, and sooner or later, that stupor disappears. Our faculties readjust themselves and do the work we will them to do. Never did they do their work so well. The black caverns of the brain begin to grow luminous. We are creating our own light. George William Russell.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle sponsored here by Still a Moving Center online every Saturday. I have sitting beside me a wonderful guest. This is a dear friend, Carol Ann Dighton, and she's normally, when she tunes in, it's from Carmel Valley, California. So I'm glad to have her right here next to me. We're taking up today the topic of noetic psychology. And this word noetic is going to keep appearing in many of the themes that we'll go through as we progress through 2026. The theme for which year is light on the path. And this idea of noetic psychology very much has to do with the light of the mind. We have with us someone who has been studying the workings of the mind as a professional psychologist, David Sanders, and he's going to approach our topic from the perspective of one of the psychologists or psychiatrists who first brought this idea of noetic psychology to modern minds. David, I'll let you take it away. I will, besides saying that he's a psychiatrist, or sorry, a psychologist, David is also a long yoga instructor and has been a yoga instructor at Still a Moving Center almost since we opened. So David, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you all for being here exactly as you are. And before we begin exploring the ideas of noetic experience together, I want to take a moment to honor not just the content of what we're going to discuss, but also the spirit in which we enter into it. As we're not here to argue ideas or accumulate concepts, we're here to open, to listen inwardly, and to soften the grip of needing to know in order for something deeper to be known through us. In the tradition of satsang, gathering in the company of truth, this is less about learning in the ordinary sense, and it's more about remembering what's already quietly alive inside each of us. So before we begin to speak on the topic of noetic experiences and noetic psychology, let us invite the noetic field itself through a simple meditation into our space, a state of receptivity, spaciousness, and maybe if we're lucky, a whisper of truth will find us when we least expect it. So with that, I invite you to be as comfortable as you can possibly be in whatever situation you're in. And let's begin by simply arriving. Gently close your eyes or soften your gaze and let your spine rise tall and your body settle into stillness. Begin to notice the breath, not to change it, but to receive it. Breathing in, you arrive. Breathing out, you soften. Let the noise of the outer world begin to fade, and notice the quiet hum of awareness beneath thought. Imagine your mind as a sky, wide and open, and your thoughts as clouds gently drifting through. Now bring your attention to the space between thoughts, the silence, the stillness. This is the doorway. Let yourself become curious, not with effort, but with ease. What if knowing could arise, not from thinking, but from simply being open. So for the next hour, or what's left of it, may we remain in that openness, relaxed, awake, and receptive to truth as it shows itself. Let the mind rest, let awareness widen, and let something deeper speak. And so with that, gently back into our screens and our awareness of one another and the share. As I share, hopefully this is all going to work swimmingly again. Okay. Play. Are we seeing the screen with a little Tao quote? Excellent. This one popped up to me and I thought it spoke to me about even having a conversation about this topic of touching into the divine. And so one of the challenges of this topic is that the deeper in you go, the bigger it gets. And so this spoke to me. So regarding noetic psychology, I'd like to mention that if you were to look into the American Psychological Association, you would not find a reference to noetic psychology. It's a theme that runs through many forms of psychology and philosophy, but there is not a noetic psychology per se, except there one reference in a site called Fandom. But with that being said, I'd like to introduce William James, philosopher and maybe original modern psychologist. He defined noetic experiences as states of knowledge, and they're characterized by mystical experiences by four specific marks: transiency, passivity, this noetic quality, and ineffability, one that I'd like to point out a little more as we go along. Quoting from William James, states of noetic quality are states of insight into depths of truth beyond the intellect. They are illuminations, revelations, carrying significance and importance. Interestingly, these states often carry a sense of authority and realness, more real than reality. So I'm going to just kind of sprinkle like kibble along this path here for the next 15 minutes or so, ideas around this topic in this noetic field that we've created. And then I'd like to offer up maybe a couple of questions for your consideration and comment. So quick background on William James, born in 1842, passed away in 1910. Born in New York City, educated in medicine, but then he transitioned into psychology and philosophy. He taught at Harvard, offering the first psychology course in the US. Major contributions into psychology, his book, The Principles of Psychology, 1890, Stream of Consciousness, the idea that thoughts are a continuous flow, and the James Lang theory of emotion proposed that emotions result from physiological responses to events. I'm probably not going to get into the idea of neuroplasticity, but I think he introduced it into the world without actually, I think he did mention the idea of plasticity, but more on that probably in another discussion. His philosophical contributions, pragmatism, he co-founded the philosophical movement, emphasizing the practical consequences of beliefs and ideas. And radical empiricism, developed from this perspective, it focused on direct experiences as the basis of knowledge. Notable works, The Varieties of Religious Experience, 1902, and Pragmatism, a new name for some old ways of thinking. So there are quite a few terms that will pop up when we're in this topic of noetic. So I call this the touching the ineffable, the noetic vocabulary. Nous, which we'll talk about in more detail, from ancient Greece, the higher intellect or the soul's eye, directly perceives truth beyond wisdom. Noetic, relating to deep intuitive insight or spiritual knowledge. Liminal is the threshold space between worlds, stages, and states of consciousness. Numinous, filled with mystical presence. It evokes awe, reverence, and sacred wonder. Ecstatic, a state of rapture or transport beyond the ordinary. Flow, a deep immersive state where time disappears, effort becomes effortlessness. Intuition, immediate inner knowing, without logical reasoning. And the mystical refers to a union with a greater reality, transcendent, wordless knowing. And gnosis, spiritual knowledge through direct personal experience, not books, not doctrine. Epiphany, a sudden realization or insight that brings clarity and meaning. Insight, a clear, deep understanding that seems to emerge spontaneously. Awakening, aha moment, presence, transcendence, revelation, ineffable, meaning beyond words, too great, subtle, or sacred to be expressed through language. So diving back into time, into the Greek notion of nous, it is a foundational concept in classical philosophy referring to the intuitive intellectual faculty of the mind that allows for the deepest perception of truth, reality, or essence, often translated as intellect, mind, or understanding. Nous is seen as a capacity distinct from sensory perception or rational thought. It functions as the mind's eye, enabling awareness or insight that transcends empirical knowledge. Ancient Greek philosophers like Anaxagoras, Plato, and particularly Aristotle gave it critical roles in explaining how humans grasp metaphysical truths. In Aristotle's framework, nous is what apprehends the first principles or foundational truths of reality, setting it apart from imagination and discursive reasoning. Later philosophical and religious traditions, including Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, and medieval Islamic and Christian thought, expanded on the concept. For example, in Neoplatonism, nous is seen as the divine intellect, a cosmic principle reflecting the mind of God and the structure of the universe. It is also closely associated with the spiritual or noetic dimension of the soul, through which individuals connect to higher truth. And across these traditions, nous represents a path to wisdom, virtue, and divine insight, acting as a bridge between human consciousness and transcendent reality. So noetic sciences really, I think, is the basis in modern times. Very interesting note. Well, noetic science is a multidisciplinary field that combines objective scientific tools with subjective inner knowing to study the nature of reality. This approach bridges the gap between empirical science and personal experience, aiming to provide a holistic understanding of existence. Its origin, interestingly enough, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, was founded in 1973 by Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell. During his return from the moon, Dr. Mitchell experienced a profound sense of universal connectedness, inspiring him to explore the integration of scientific knowledge and inner wisdom. The mission of IONS seeks to reveal the interconnected nature of reality through scientific exploration and personal discovery, fostering this deeper understanding of human consciousness and our collective potential. Another concept derived from this, which I believe dates back to the Greek idea, is that this idea of the noosphere. It's a concept developed by Vladimir Vernadsky and Pierre Teilhard Desjardins, describing a new evolutionary stage in which human consciousness, thought, and reason become a powerful force shaping the planet. Following the geosphere, or matter, and the biosphere, life itself, the non-material, the noosphere represents a planetary mind rooted in the Greek nous and sphera, sphere. Vernadsky viewed it through a scientific lens, emphasizing how human intellect and technology alter the Earth systems, Teilhard, on the other hand, saw it as a spiritual evolution, driven by the increasing interconnectedness of human minds, like is happening right now. He believed this collective consciousness would evolve towards what he called the omega point, a state of ultimate unity and awareness. I believe in modern terms, we're also calling this the singularity. Um, it's it's hard to bring up this topic without also referring to Carl Jung. And Carl Jung spoke very highly of, back referencing William James. He was, a slight shift in time. He collaborated with Freud, but later diverged over spiritual and symbolic concepts of the psyche. So his idea of the collective unconsciousness proposed that humanity shares a reservoir of symbolic knowledge and mythic patterns. This sounds like the noosphere. So all of these topics, they're giving different terms for this idea that we are creating this larger sphere. I believe the archetypes are a representation of this. He identified these recurring symbols like the shadow, anima, animus, and the hero found across cultures and across religions. He introduced the idea of synchronicity, of meaningful coincidences as non-causal but psychologically significant. I believe that Einstein said coincidences are God's way of staying anonymous. When I was diving deep into this, I also remembered this quote that was burned into my memory because it spoke so much. And so I did a little research. What I remembered was, you will know your friends better in the first moment you meet than you will know your acquaintances in 1,000 years. Turns out that's from the book Illusions by Richard Bach, who through many of his works explored these themes of personal freedom, spirituality, and this deep immediate connections between people. And then more contemporary, modern age, Michael Pollan, in the book How to Change Your Mind, explores his firsthand encounter with noetic experiences. And I love this quote: "The conviction that some profound objective truth has been disclosed to you is a hallmark of the mystical experience, regardless of whether it has been occasioned by a drug, meditation, fasting, flagellation, or sensory deprivation." William James gave a name to this conviction, the noetic quality. People feel they have been let in on a deep secret of the universe, and they cannot be shaken from that conviction. So just some quick things that have made it into the common vocabulary that point in the direction of this noetic experience. It just clicked. A light bulb went off. Now I see it. I can feel it in my bones. I don't know how I know. I just know. It came to me in a flash. Out of nowhere, it hit me. Like the veil was lifted. Everything just made sense all of a sudden. And then these inner knowing, follow your gut, go with your instincts. The heart knows what the mind cannot explain. Something told me inner knowing is louder than external noise. The still small voice within. Transformative wisdom. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. You can't step in the same river twice. As above, so below. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Let go, and you'll understand. The more you know, the less you need to say. And words are a poor substitute for experience. Looking like we're nearing that 20-minute mark. Just some more phrases that have this noetic resonance. I had an epiphany. It felt like remembering something I'd always known. That moment changed everything. It was a download. Time stood still. I saw the bigger picture. And here's some things that I'm going to check in with after. And I think with that, I think I've distributed enough kibble for now. I think I'd like to stop my share and invite some commentary.
Do you not want to put on that suggestions list? Maybe just
Uh,
put that up for a moment.
yes, I could actually lead with that. I just wondered if there was any burning comment that somebody had to say. I'm going to take us back into the experiential domain and ask some things, and then based upon if something moves within you by my questioning, I'd like you to hit the, raise your hand button somewhere on your screen. And
Oh,
I
I
see,
can,
Marianne,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I first look at that whole consciousness of the collective that you were mentioning, and because it's so timely yesterday, that we have Earth Hour for 1 hour, and how that shifted consciousness, and we just kind of woke up in wonder about how the world experienced this, and 1 hour of turning lights off and being conscious, and and in that, I was observing what you were saying about it becoming an aha for some people, but going to the collective. So my question is, how does it reach that personal aha versus the collective aha? When I guess I woke up just going, I just want to see pictures of all the lights off in the underworld. But the knowing, it wasn't, I couldn't access the knowing. So it's just a question I had. Does that make sense?
I'll sit with the question. Does somebody compelled to answer the question? Sort of,
I'd like a little more clarification on the question. I'm not aware of the experience that you had, Marianne. I get the sense that I missed out something important.
Yesterday was an international day observing 1 hour of unplugging, if you will, called Earth Hour.
Okay,
And seems to me that a movement like that starts with an idea, and then it hits all the physical matter senses, but it also came from an idea, from an experience to the collective. And so there, I'm exploring that this morning, is the experience that manifested as an idea or knowingness that we were connected to an exercise or experience where we all get together and do something for an hour. That was yesterday. And I woke up today with this because I'm in India now. So I woke up with that and just kind of experienced it. Does that help you understand it?
yes, thank you.
Okay.
yeah, an hour of something called nothing. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. It makes me think about the term that we passed by pretty quickly, liminal. It's that space in between, and I wonder if your idea of the personal might be of that might be no different than the universal. It is that liminal space where we connect with the divine, where there is no distinction. That was my thought on that. Renee, you were suggesting that I go back to share that screen?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Let me go back one here. All right. So here's some group prompts. I labeled it knowing without knowing. And so,
we can't see it yet.
oh, okay. Well, let's see. Did I?
While you're pulling that up, I'll mention that Marianne is the sister of a John Sachs, who explored noetic psychology extensively, and whose quotes about it that I found online helped me to understand the word noetic and noesis. And so I'm really deeply indebted to her brother. He emboldened me to think that, okay, this word noetic is accessible enough. It means like this immediate knowing, just, I get it. That word is accessible enough for us to be able to use it throughout this year's almanac. So I'm really very, very grateful to her brother, John Sachs. And I just wanted to acknowledge that right at the beginning of the year, the first time that we are using this word noetic and are taking up the study of the almanac a bit.
Sweet. All right, let me go back and see if is it now sharing?
Yes, and
All
push
right.
play and it'll be bigger.
All right, and the play, I think, yeah, did that work? Excellent. Okay, this first one I called, so you might like to close your eyes for this and just drop back into that experience of openness. And I will read. There's a number of options here, and if you do find that one of these brief meditations speaks to you, then by all means, raise your virtual hand or your real hand, and speak on the subject. So this first one I called "The Moment You Knew." So think about a time when you met someone, you just knew they would be important in your life, even if you couldn't explain why. What did it feel like in your body? What part of you knew? So let those questions kind of sink in. This immediate knowing upon meeting a person, like this is somebody significant in my life, and it played out to be that way. Yeah. And if you have something to share on that, someone that you had that experience, and I invite you to unmute yourself, raise your hand, invite yourself into the dialogue. I see that look on Bob's face, like it's pregnant with thought, as he often is.
Well, I find it very interesting as you talked about the liminal. Um, One of my favorite aspects of William James is that he talks about this kind of healthy mindedness versus the sick soul. And it it's really a concept of how we come to these ideas. So, for example, I've had an experience of meeting someone who later became a great friend, and I knew that very intimately from the beginning, as you suggest. But I think what James says is that at that threshold, we choose to believe or we don't. And choosing to believe sounds very funny, but it's an inherent part of his pragmatism. In other words, something has to click for us to take that move to believe. And in varieties of religious experience, he talks about three questions. Is it living or dead? In other words, is this idea that you're about to approach something that really is compelling and living and alive for you and means something? Or is it kind of dead? He gives the example from the Quran. Uh, to a Muslim, belief in God is compelling, it's living, it's important. But to an atheist, it's not. So to a certain extent, that sense of living is already a choice to believe. You're already kind of in that view. And then he says, well, it's either forced or it's avoidable. You know, if you're a Christian, heaven and hell, it's a forced thing. You have to believe in it. Um, but to, say, a Buddhist believing in reincarnation and rebirth, it's not. And on the flip side, for a Christian, it's uh, avoidable to talk about rebirth and karma. You don't have to. And then finally, the third, it's either momentous or it's trivial. And, if something becomes living, forced, and momentous, you're in that context of believing. And then once you've crossed into it through the liminal, these ideas then start blossoming and you're perceptive to mystical experience or other things that he talks about. But unless you take that step, you're not going pragmatically, you're not going to have belief. And once you have the belief, it leads very closely to action, so that you're going to act upon it, you're going to be open to it. And so for my, that choose to believe that this is going to be a friend, I'm acting as though he's a friend. I trust this person without question. And that trust is, of course, part of what friendship is. So I'm just kind of looking at that. And as you do these things, the more and more that becomes reinforced, he says, it then almost becomes a groove in your consciousness, and it becomes a habit. And if you go far enough along that groove, it becomes your character and the kind of person you are. So I found that very pragmatically interesting. That's something how he deals with it, and you realize that we're all different. We may not find the same things momentous or forced or living. So that's where I was kind of going with what you were talking about in terms of James, because James is just a wonderfully pragmatic person, gives examples that are immediately accessible to you if you find them living. So that was my thought that
Awesome.
you picked up on my face.
Thank you, Bob. Is there this next little gem I'd like to drop is meeting your inner mentor. Referring to Richard Bach's Illusions, Richard meets this Donald Shimoda, a mysterious teacher who appears just when he's ready to learn, rather synchronistically. If someone like that appeared in your life right now, what would they say to you? What lesson might they offer you?
Or if someone actually did appear in your life, what did they
Mhm.
say? What did they offer?
Yeah, beautiful.
You've had that experience.
Yeah, does anybody have a share about someone somewhat magically or mystically appearing in their life, offering a bit of wisdom that was um, important enough to change your life? I see a hand, Dishan.
Hey, David. I think one of the things that spoke to me in this last week was the story from Buddhism, where I think Buddha, where he holded this sangha, where he was holding a lotus, and he removed one of the petals holding up in front of all his disciples without saying anything. And there was only one person who smiled back to Buddha, and basically he got that knowing or an information which Buddha was trying to convey without saying anything. And I believe it was to be known as the first mind-to-mind transmission, where the teacher is basically trying to, I guess, send the information to the student. And I think that story came as the forefront for me when you spoke about this. The teacher showing up at the time when the student is ready, or perhaps knowing without knowing. So I think the person who received that information, um, Buddha, I believe, marked that person as to be the eye of the dharma. And I believe the intention that the Buddha had said was how to put forward the path for dharma for the upcoming um, generations. So I think the question is, was the intention set or the seed was planted by the teacher, or was it the student really trying to connect to this divine dharma? So I think it is that is something we can't grasp through our mind, but without knowing, I guess.
Yeah, it speaks to a favorite tool of mine, which is metaphor. How we can talk around something without specifically naming it, so that it can arise within us as an original thought. I think it might be a good therapeutic tool as well. The next one I prepared is called Truth That Can't Be Proved, along those same lines. James talked about noetic experiences, these moments where you suddenly know something is true, even if you can't explain how. So, what's a truth you feel deep in your bones, even if no one else would understand? Something that you didn't have to learn or study, it's just a truth that you know. Does anyone have something to share along those lines?
David.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shirley. For me, what kind of comes up is that having had a near-death experience, this knowing without knowing that we're all praying to the same place, even if we label ourselves under different religions, under different traditions. I just know.
Hmm. Yeah, how do we know what we know?
Do you want to describe that experience a little bit?
So in this particular near-death experience that I had, I lost connection with my physical self, was in a space where I was greeted by the presence of a lot of energy, a lot of spiritual quote for quote people, souls, whatever we term we put to it as humans. And I essentially sat with this committee of souls and we had a satsang about my life and the things that I had experienced, and that I was given this choice because I had come through so much suffering that, and this is what was said to me, that I had a really hard life, that if I wanted to stay, I could, but that if I went back, I could do a lot of good for a lot of people that needed it. And I chose the second, and I woke up, fast forward 7 years. I think that I'm on that trajectory, and it was not a knowing of how to get there. It just was showing up and kind of doing that work. But yeah, just this idea that as a nurse, I couldn't understand death, because when I would take care of somebody that died, no matter their tradition, religion, everybody died the same. Everybody, takes their last breath. We come in the same, we leave the same. And I didn't understand like how to help people cross their bridge to where they needed to go. And so the only way I could cope with that disconnect was to try to greet people where they were at. And I was telling Renee earlier, I would, if they were Hindu, Buddhist, Catholic, atheist, I would get online and I would Google like prayers that they might know or that were in their tradition, because I thought I was helping them get to their heaven. Fast forward to my near-death experience, I'm like, I think I had this a little wrong. I think we're all going the same place. It's just through time, evolution, distance, continents, wherever you were born into kind of dictated the tradition which you were offered, or that was in your community, or that you were brought up in. And this to me just kind of connected the dots that we're one human family, and we come from one place. This is a stop on the way, and we go back to that place. And it was not an understanding beyond maybe it's my peace of mind knowing that I helped those people go wherever they needed to go. Or maybe it's the truth of it. Maybe there is one place that we're all praying to. We just all call it a different thing.
Thank you so much. That was your noetic
That was my noetic
experience of direct knowing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One of my yoga students online since COVID is a nurse anesthetist up at Tripler, And I stumbled upon this in my research with William James. She had an interesting comment following when I sent this to her. This is James was experimenting, you might say, with nitrous oxide, laughing gas. It's a dissociative anesthetic, commonly used, and he was using it to explore these altered states of consciousness. And these experiences gave him a profound sense of mystical insight, which he described as ineffable and luminous, resonating with what he would later term noetic qualities and in religious experiences. Quoting him, with me, as with many other, with every other person who has tried nitrous oxide, the keynote of this experience is the tremendously exciting sense of an intense metaphysical illumination, although no rational verbal account of its contents can be given. This is from the Varieties of Religious Experience, which directly influences belief that states of consciousness outside of the norm, even those induced chemically, could yield real knowledge or insight into the nature of reality. It's an interesting sidebar that I had not known about him, having not read the full text.
Thank you.
I'm just going to chime in. I did nurse anesthesiology for a while, and people often wake up saying that they saw God or that they had a experience. And I think part of that in my exploration of the possibilities is that we're disassociating consciousness from physical body with these substances. And when you can let go of physicality and you're more in that ethereal plane, I think that that's where you're free to find transcendence and knowledge without the inhibitions of being in a physical body. And so I believe that there's something to that, having been the person that watched people wake up a lot from anesthesia. So interesting.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Goes back to that opening meditation, what can we let go of in order to find some deeper truth? It really is in the letting go. There's another one that I prepared. Nordic psychology came up a lot in this research. In Nordic psychology, solitude isn't emptiness, it's a mirror. And when you're alone with yourself, what do you see most clearly? What part of you becomes louder or softer in that quiet? So for those of you who have a regular meditation practice, you may have some notion of this idea that silence is not empty, but it's this mirror. I'm curious if anybody has a thought on this mirroring experience in silence and in solitude.
See Diana's hand.
Hi, David. Yeah, this is great,
David.
David. Thank you. I think, and it speaks to the that what she was talking about, the hour of silence. I think it's in the silence that we touch into oneness. It's in the meditation that I go beneath my words and my thoughts and realize that they are just passing clouds across Mount Fuji, and that it's in that oneness that we experience of silence that we do experience that knowing without knowing. And it's allowing ourselves to rest in that. And for me, the more that we practice listening, deep listening, that we can meet our inner wisdom or God, or really listen to the words and be told and shown. And we start to, the more that we do that, the more that we trust that we have a faith and I have a faith and a trust that it is through that silence that I'm guided and that I know we are all one. So if I experience that while we're meditating, when there is a group meditating or the world is doing it, the liminal space that you talked about, and whatever we do, because we are all one, affects everybody. And so if we have those moments of peace and love and understanding with faith and trust, that is a frequency that we're sharing with everyone. And I believe it does have a profound effect. And so it's in those, it's in the silence for me that I experience the knowing without knowing and feeling the oneness of all that is.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Renee, can I call upon you? You have done a lot of research on this notion of nous and how it affects, all of the thoughts throughout this year's theme.
Mm.
What is speaking to you right now?
I think your opening quote was the Tao, which kind of translated as the way or the truth. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. And just this idea that by its very nature, any noetic mystical experience that we have is going to be impossible for us to adequately put into words. And all we can do is suggest what we've experienced.
Mhm.
Carol Ann, I think, did a remarkable job of helping us to, through her words, convey the experience that she had in this near-death state. And yet I suspect it doesn't begin to really convey to us her enormous experience of light that
Mm.
that she went through. Perhaps for that reason, it's a bit daunting for any of us to, try to put into words, which I just really admire Carol Ann for so bravely going there to really, take something. And also, it's often something very sacred to our hearts. And it's almost as if I don't even want to put it into words, knowing that whatever I put out will just be such a feeble representation of something that is so grand and glorious and just dear to my heart, and moments that have been transcendent experiences in my life. I feel like just trying to speak of them almost diminishes them. And by the same token, somebody who's brave enough to give it a try, like I have learned so much from Carol Ann over the years, hearing about her near-death experience, and it's and having others hear about her near-death experience when she has shared them at, for example, our satsangs. I think it's very cheering to people who really have been wondering, what happens after I die? Is there anything there? Is there any more me? And to hear somebody who's been there, could have stayed on the other side and decided to come back in order to be of service to others and to help others learn and grow and understand. Wow. It's kind of like a sacrifice to share one of these experiences, I feel like. And I just want to express gratitude for those who make the effort to do that, to share in that very vulnerable kind of way.
I wanted to, oh, someone's speaking.
No, I just said, I hope I didn't shut everybody up with my
Oh.
comment.
No, well said. It reminds me of when I first discovered the word agnostic, and having explored many domains of spiritual ways of experiencing the divine, I came to realize it was going to be far bigger than anything that a human mind could comprehend. And agnosticism sounded like, yeah, there's something out there. We just can't possibly comprehend something that, yeah. I did prepare a closing meditation, and I'm looking at the clock here. We have 8 minutes left on the clock. I know there's some announcements about future topics. There's a acknowledgement and recognition portion. I could take a moment and invite any last comments, or I could dive right into a meditation and then we could have comments afterwards. I see a hand up.
Yeah, and before Bob
Yeah.
answers, let's give a space for anybody who hasn't spoken yet, who
Oh,
might
cool.
summon the courage or whatever it takes to say something. Renée?
David, I just want to say thank you ahead of time. I know we did that at the end, but Noetic is a new word for me. I speak Spanish, so I never heard of it. And I Google it and everything, but I couldn't wrap my hair around it. And I feel like after your presentation and all the other ideas, I'm able to grasp a little better what it means. And the thing that keeps coming to my mind and related to knowing without knowing is the everything happens for a reason is my truth that I believe in. It's, something's always happening or happen, and there is a reason behind it, but you don't know what is it, right? You just have to trust that there's something out there, right? Whether it's an accident or a decision that we made or whatever, everything happens for a reason. So that just kept coming to my mind, just reading Knowing Without Knowing and how that is my truth. And thank you so much for stimulating my brain and making me think. And so many stories and past memories came up, and thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sharoni. Yeah.
Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet, perhaps? Michael.
Oh, I knew Michael was going to chime in here. Awesome.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew about a relevant, interesting organization called IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, who has been around for many years and does a lot of interesting research. It's called IONS, IONS.org. They're still active. I see they've just posted a new video about synchronicity. But anyone wanting to explore this more might want to look into IONS.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots and lots there in their website on this topic. We skimmed over it very briefly, Michael, early on, but they are, yeah, lots of information there. Sharoni mentioned trust again, which reminded me that Bob had his hand up, and anyone else that has not raised their hand and would like to.
Carolyn. Carolyn Dorrance.
Well, this is thank you for your all your preparation and for your explanations and questions. This is really something you've presented us with a lot to contemplate. It does seem from my experience that noetic psychology is a pathway to seeing the truth. That's something we need. I mean, we have all kinds of psychological experience in life and reactions to people and opportunities and all of that. But above all that, it seems to me the word truth says something very important. And one type of truth is to see in consciousness something of previous lives, because that's one of the big factors in everything we're experiencing is what we have experienced before. Sometimes when people are talking about karma, they think of the past in terms of what's our past karma, what our karma we creating and all of that. But it's really very complicated, but exhilarating to learn more about yourself or the experience of yourself because you really do appreciate it when you see something that you really know is true. And so I would just add that into the very complex effort of self of discovering who you are and what your duty might be and what your challenges might be. So I just kind of, as I say, put that into the pathway of discovery.
Thank you. I think that immediate perception of truth and in this undeniable kind of way indeed seems to suggest the noetic. Let's call upon Bob finally. He's been so patiently waiting.
No, it's fine. I think we're ready for David's final meditation. We want to leave room for that.
Well, I do want to invite Adele to chime in since she's got her hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks, David. I had no idea what noetic as well meant. So that was very illuminating. But it made me think of so Romans 8:28 in the Bible says that, and we know that for all who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. And just about a week and a half ago, we actually found out that my oldest brother has throat cancer. And so starting next week, Monday, or in 2 days, he's going to be starting radiation and chemotherapy. And it was really odd because as soon as I heard the news, it's like you said, I had this knowing that he's going through this so that he can know how much he is loved. And that if he could get that message, that was the more important message and more powerful than whatever physical illness on this earth that he is about to go through. And it just came to me like a knowing, like this is why it's happening. He needs to know that he's loved.
Beautiful.
Really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. What I'd like to propose is that I tell what's going to happen next week.
Okay.
That somebody then gives David a vote of thanks. And that for those who have the time to stay on after that, we all stay on who are able to go through David's last meditation with us. So next week's theme is elevating our energy. Deshane, who's with us today, and his wife Jade are Qigong teachers at Still a Moving Center. And from the perspective of Taoism and the teachings of Qigong, they're going to be presenting to us on this idea of elevating our energy. So that's for next week. In the not too distant future, we have the cross, and Mary's going to be giving that, and that I think is the week maybe preceding, if not the week of Easter. Okay, so is there somebody who would like to give a photo? Oh, thank you, Mary.
I just thank you, everyone, but I really want to thank David for this extremely conscious speaking to where so many of us can touch what you've said in different ways, and not only giving us these working experiences and moments of reflection, those mini bites of silence. It helped us so much. Each of us, I think, touched something. And then on behalf of my brother, I feel it would be great for you two to talk sometime, and maybe you do some yoga for him. And I think that's a spontaneity that for sure happens. So I bless you, and I'm so proud of your work, and I look forward to hearing more.
Thank you so much, Mary. Marianne.
Yeah, for anyone who has the opportunity to stay on maybe just another 3, possibly 4 minutes, I feel well acknowledged. Grateful for the opportunity. I want to thank Renee and Sharoni for hosting this and giving me the opportunity to dive into this and to expand my own noosphere. So, our closing meditation I will call Integrating the Light of Insight. So, take a comfortable seat, allow your eyes to soften close, and as we come to the end of this satsang, let us return to the stillness from which we began. Feel the breath again, grounding you, anchoring you. Sense your body, your heart, your mind, softened, spacious, perhaps a little more luminous. Without effort, notice. Has something shifted in you? Perhaps not in words, but in presence. Even if you leave this with no clear conclusion, trust that something real may have moved within. A thread of knowing, a seed of insight, a light in the quiet. We don't always need to name it. We only need to listen and remember that this deeper wisdom is always here. So as you return to your day, may your steps be light, your heart open, and your mind clear, ready to recognize the luminous truth when it arrives, just as you least expect it.
So
Let's
much.
just take just a couple moments of silence. Let that simmer in. And as we say in my tradition, namaste, and so it is. Renee.
David, I just thank you so much for giving us an experience that did transcend the words, that listening more deeply than to the words on the surface, and just allowing that space for us to dive quite a bit deeper. And for everyone who shared their own knowings.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Aloha. Thank you.
Aloha.
Mahalo. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you,
Thank you,
David. That was
Nancy.
wonderful.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for chiming in and filling out some of the other. I'm sure that we could go on for days with just from the James perspective. Yeah, I look forward to learning more about his work. Yeah.
We look forward to hearing more.
Yeah. And Michael, yes, thank you for chiming in, redirecting us back to that ions. It really is chock full of, wow. Yeah. So
Thank you.
thank you, Adele. Thank you for that contribution.
Renee, can you ask if Carolyn can call me? I didn't know she was in Hawaii.
I will.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. Aloha.
Aloha.